When you walk into certain churches, you might notice something that feels both simple and symbolic at the same time. Some women covering their heads with veils, scarves, or lace mantillas. It's a quiet gesture, but one that carries centuries of meaning. Why do some women wear veils to church? Is it tradition, religion, culture, or something else? Today, we're exploring the history, symbolism, and meaning behind this practice, right here, on History of Simple Things. The idea of covering the head didn't begin with modern churches. It actually goes back thousands of years. In many ancient societies, including those of the Middle East, Greece, and Rome, head coverings were a common practice among women. They were often associated with modesty, social status, or respect in public spaces. In religious settings, covering the head became a way to show reverence. It signaled that a person was entering a sacred space and behaving accordingly. So by the time early Christianity began to spread, the concept of women covering their heads was already familiar in the surrounding cultures. One of the main reasons veiling became associated with church worship comes from the New Testament. In a letter attributed to Paul the Apostle, specifically in 1 Corinthians 11, there is a passage discussing head coverings during prayer and worship. In that text, women are encouraged to cover their heads while praying, while men are advised not to. This passage has been interpreted in many different ways over time. Some see it as a cultural guideline specific to that historical period, while others view it as a timeless instruction for worship. Because of this, different Christian groups have adopted different practices. For many women who wear veils in church, the act is deeply symbolic. The veil can represent modesty, humility, and respect before God. It's a way of acknowledging that worship is a sacred moment, separate from everyday life. Some also see it as a personal expression of faith, a quiet outward sign of inner devotion. Unlike strict dress codes, veiling in many modern churches is voluntary. That makes it more about personal meaning than obligation. Head coverings were once very common in the Catholic Church. For many years, women attending Mass were expected to cover their heads, often using lace veils called mantillas. This expectation was reflected in earlier versions of church law. However, in 1983, the Catholic Church updated its Code of Canon Law, and the requirement for women to cover their heads was removed. Today, women in Catholic churches are no longer required to wear veils, but some still choose to do so as a personal or spiritual practice. The practice of veiling isn't limited to one denomination. In Eastern Orthodox Christianity, many women continue to cover their heads during worship, especially in more traditional communities. Some Protestant groups, particularly conservative or Anabaptist communities, also maintain the practice as part of their interpretation of Scripture. At the same time, many churches do not emphasize head coverings at all. This diversity shows how one biblical idea has evolved differently across cultures and denominations. It's important to understand that veiling is not just a religious act. It can also be influenced by culture. In some parts of the world, head coverings are part of everyday clothing, not just something worn in church. In other places, the practice may feel more formal or symbolic because it's only used during worship. This overlap between culture and religion means that the meaning of a veil can vary widely depending on where you are and who you ask. In modern times, the practice of wearing veils to church has become more of a personal choice than a universal expectation. Some women choose to wear veils as a way to reconnect with tradition. Others see it as a meaningful spiritual habit that helps them focus during prayer. While head coverings were traditionally worn by Christian women during worship, this practice has significantly declined in many Christian communities in recent times, according to St. John Church. Because veiling is often associated with modesty, some people assume it's about restriction or inequality. But for many women, the meaning is quite different. Wearing a veil is often described as a personal decision, one that represents respect, identity, or devotion rather than obligation. It's also worth noting that similar practices exist in many religions around the world, each with its own meaning and context. Understanding those differences helps avoid oversimplifying the practice. Beyond tradition and scripture, the veil carries symbolic meaning. It can represent the idea of separation between the sacred and the ordinary, creating a sense of focus during worship. Some interpret it as a reminder of humility, placing attention not on appearance but on prayer. Others see it as a connection to history, linking modern worshipers to centuries of tradition. Like many religious symbols, its meaning is layered and personal. Here are a few things you might not know. The lace veil, often seen in Catholic churches, is called a mantilla, a style that originated in Spain. According to a 2024 article by Grace Stafford, veiling was an important part of Christian women's dress in late antiquity and symbolized both modesty and religious ideas about female submission to male authority. So why do women wear veils to church? The answer isn't just one thing. It's a combination of history, scripture, culture, and personal meaning. What started as a common cultural practice became a religious tradition, then evolved into a personal expression of faith. Today, whether a woman chooses to wear a veil or not, the practice continues to carry deep symbolic significance for those who embrace it. The next time you see someone wearing a veil in church, you're not just seeing a piece of fabric. You're seeing a tradition shaped by thousands of years of history, belief, and personal devotion. And that's the story behind one of the most subtle yet meaningful practices in religious life. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.